Welcome to the social-engineer.org podcast, the Security Awareness Series, episode 150. Can you believe we're on episode 150? I can't even get over that. Yeah. I'm Chris Hadnagy, founder and CEO of Social Engineer LLC, social-engineer.org, and the Innocent Lives Foundation. And I've been hosting this podcast since way back in the day, 2009, if you can even remember that. Some of you weren't even born then. That's pretty scary. Okay, I'm joined by my awesome co-host, Ryan MacDougall.
Hey, Chris. Happy to be here. Never had that type of opening. It's awesome.
No, I said your name very, emphatically.
Yeah, you did, indeed. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Social Engineer LLC, and I'm also the lead open source intelligence trainer for SECom. I've taught at both Black Hat and DerbyCon, as well as a number of private classes. I've been in the information technology field for about 24 years, with the last 9 being focused on adversary simulation and security awareness.
Awesome, man. Thank you, Ryan. And this episode is sponsored by social-engineer.com, or our company, Social Engineer LLC. We're a trusted information security company specializing in fully managed voice phishing and email phishing programs, as well as security assessments like red teaming, SE teaming, and other things. We all know, man, we can see it in the news. You can't turn the news on without seeing another breach, another ransomware attack, or something else happening. Security threats are targeting all of us. So our focus here is our team of certified social engineers are trained to help companies learn how they can combat these adversaries through adversarial simulations that are designed to educate and train in the latest attack vectors that are out there. You could check out more information on the things that we offer on social-engineer.com. So you can head over there and check that out. And another thing, real quick, we just relaunched social-engineer.org. It's brand new and shiny and pretty. Go check that out too. Now, did you notice that we run a Slack channel? You can check the show notes. I think they're down there if you're watching the YouTube video. And we have almost, I think it's over now, 1,000 people in there every day talking about pretexting, phishing, careers, using human hacking skills and communications, everyday life. So you can get the link in the show notes, head on over to join us on the Slack channel. There's new announcements in there and all sorts of things that you can check out. We also want to thank Clutch. Of course, always thank Clutch for everything in life. You should just thank Clutch because they exist, but we want to thank them especially because they are the music that we get to use for this awesome podcast. So we are very happy. You can check them out at prorock.com. And guess what, guys? Little secret. They're having a 30-year tour, and they just announced some dates. So if you want to hang out with me and Ryan at some of them, we're going to be at some. I'm not telling you which ones. I say come to all of them, and some of them will be there. We'll be there, okay? And also don't forget to visit innocentlivesfoundation.org. My amazing team over there, they really are just unbelievable. We are unmasking anonymous child predators by helping law enforcement identify who they are and where they are, and working with law enforcement to bring them to justice. We can always use your help, either with donations or with spreading the word and helping us through the work that we're doing there. Anyhow, let's get to our interview. I'm excited. I met this guy just recently, and when you hear what we're going to talk about, I think you're going to understand why we had to get him on the show. So this is my buddy, Michael Fortune. I'm going to say it that way because that's how I was told to say it during class. And Mike is the it's great. It's wonderful. He's the Security Behaviours Team Manager for British Telecom. That's BT over in the UK. Michael's been with them for over 22 years, which is a long time, where he's currently now the expert focusing on security behavior, insider threat, and social engineering. And he works with over 160,000 of their employees globally. So not just in the UK, but all over the world. And under his charge is helping them, each one of those employees, learn what kind of threats are out there and how, with his expertise, he can help to keep them safe by driving security programs for the company. So, Mike, thank you for coming and joining us here on the podcast today.
It's a great honor, Chris, to be honest. It's a great honor.
It's not common that we get a chance to talk to someone who's been focused on social engineering and human-based attacks for that long. I mean, 22 years is a long time. I mean, this was like just the beginning of that.
It's not all that time I've been focused on social engineering. I've got a healthy background in psychology and behavior. I spent a long time actually as a behavioral change consultant for the business. I moved over into security and certainly cyber and physical security around about 9 years ago. And so for about 9 years, I've been sort of really interested in social engineering and that human behavior side of security.
So that's an interesting point you brought up. So let's talk about your path. So you said you have a background in psychology. How would that help you? How has that helped you when you're focusing on helping now people with cybersecurity, information security?
So I think it's massive. I think we can't lose sight of the human condition, and the part it plays in security. We can talk about technology and cyber all day long, but the reality is at the end of everything is a human being. And we're very complex creatures, so it's got to play a major part in security. And we often refer to it actually as the human firewall, is what we call it. Getting people's human firewall switched on, because it plays a crucial part in protecting the business and yourself.
Yeah. So have you been able to use psychological principles in, let's not talk about the attacks just yet, but in the actual education side, and how have you seen it work, either good or bad?
So yes, we have. What we try to do in our education for BT is we try to make things personal and real. That's what we want to do. We use social engineering. Now, I'm not a pen tester per se. We've got our pen testers who focus on our penetration testing. But I am versed in social engineering because we want to focus on the human side. And we use that to really drive education, to get people interested, aware, and focused on it. Because at the end of the day, it's about our behavior more than anything else, and our communication. And so we utilize social engineering to make the education, the engagement very powerful. And we then also... I've got a great belief that the more people are aware, the better choices they can make. And so we've got this mission to really switch people on a bit more about being aware, about being human, being what it means to our behaviors, what it means to communicate. And that helps people. I think people are actually naturally fascinated and interested, Chris.
Yeah, and I agree with that. But how do you combat... Okay, so we got a couple problems that we need to talk about. First, with the world that we're in right now, we got fatigue when it comes to online education and things like that, because people are just sitting in front of their computers now for many more hours a day. Plus, you got this issue where most cybersecurity training is pretty lame and boring. So as soon as people hear that term, they go, oh man, not another one of these dumb videos. Like, I'm just going to shut off. So how do you do this for 160,000 people and make it what you just said about them personally, and make it entertaining and fun and something that they can use?
So first of all, we have our standard training. We've always got our mandated security training that most companies have to use. And we've created our own internal, we call it the issues training. So we don't just, standard companies will focus on phishing. We don't. We focus on the issues. We include phishing and smishing and social media as well. But we make that training as fun as we can. We make it gamified, so you're taking on the hacker. It's only short, so it keeps it nice and snappy. Now, we utilize them. They're there for people to do their mandated basic training. But when we go doing personal engagement, we try to add a real element to it. So before, obviously, the world changed with COVID-19, we were able to get out and about. And we would go out and the way we work is we would focus on our key critical areas first within the business. So our most sensitive, our most critical people first, obviously. And then we would try to get down to all the rest of the employees. And if we were going to focus on a key area, let's say it was, procurement, then we would work with the seniors in procurement first, and we would educate them and make it personal and real for them. We would do their own personal risk, social engineering risk assessments on the seniors. We would show them how we would have attacked them. We would show them what would have happened to them. And then we would do all the good stuff and coach them on how to lessen their footprint and make lessen their risk. That gets their buy-in. That gets them interested. And now we go out to their people. But when we go and educate their people, we would actually go and attack their sites and their critical teams. And we would build all that experience into their training experience. So when we go and, I often say, I can talk about the psychology, I can talk about the facts, I can talk about the theory. Well, actually, I'm just going to show you how we did it to you. And then you take them through how you just did it to them is a real eye-opener for them.
Mike,
and that makes
I
it
think
personal.
we need to focus on, there's so much there to unpack, but we need to focus on one major thing that you said, because I don't think we talk about this enough. Your approach of coming from the top down, right? So let me take the top man and woman in this department, and let's attack them first to get their buy-in, is so different from what we hear every day. Like, we go sometimes and we get approached by companies that say, okay, look, we want you to start from the bottom up. And then when the C-level sees all these bottom people scattering because we dropped a pipe bomb in the mix, then they're going to go, hey, we should probably do something. And your approach of coming from the top down, it sounds so much more intelligent and effective, because you're going to not be fighting internal politics to get this training out there. Is that what you have found?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. So this comes from my experience of being a behavioral change consultant working in big change programs. The first golden rule of any big change program was you have to go and get the authorizing sponsor, and you have to get them interested and bought in. If you don't have that, everything else fails. Because if you think about insider threat behavior, one of the key areas of negligence insider, I don't like insider threat as a word, by the way, or words. I actually call it the risky insider behaviors, because insider threat feels like it's bad people doing bad things. And it's not. Most of it is not bad people doing bad things. But when you look at the negligence insider, one of the areas there is the seniors, which quite often have this mentality of, do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? And it doesn't apply to me. So everyone else does it, but I don't. But human beings, we watch and we look for role models. And there's a great resistance, an element of resistance that I always sort of took to in human beings, resistance to change. And one of them is, what's the point? And if you have that kind of attitude at the senior level, people are going to look at it and go, well, what's the point? They don't do it. So it's just a logical approach of, once you've got the buy-in. I mean, I'll give you an example of this. So we had quite an interesting area we had to work with. We did. It was part of our cloud teams. And I wanted to get all them people, 2,000 people, on our human firewall training, which is a 3-hour online, hard-hitting, personal and real training program. But the first thing I had to do was go and win the seniors over. So I go and spend 2-3 hours with the seniors, and I give them things that are personal and bespoke and real to them, that really get their attention and buy-in. And if you don't listen to this, this could happen. And once you've got that, then you sign them up to an agreement of how you're going to run that training program. And every time you get a little bit of resistance, well, you get them to reinforce it.
So
and that all melts away.
You're performing basically an SE gig to get your acceptance to do an SE gig.
Absolutely.
So, the reason why I think this is just so vitally important of a conversation, it's not even what we planned on talking about. So it's like we're taking a left hand or right hand turn or whatever direction you want to go, is because we get asked this question probably. This is maybe the third most asked question that we get, right? First is like, how do I get in the industry? But people will always say, how do I get buy-in from my senior management to do this stuff? Because they're always looking at me and saying, no, you have no budget for that. And you literally just,
or even just to participate in it.
You just gave the answer.
For them to participate is a huge step for a lot of people that we hear about.
Do you know that I always believe also that you've got to be able to tell a really good story. People need to see what's in it for them. And you've got to be able to create that what's in it for you. That is vastly important when you get to stakeholder management, senior management. What's in it for them? And if that means you've got to highlight some of the consequences, that's what you've got to do.
But what's your rule set? So you have to have a rule set, right? Because I think some people listening to this need to hear, do you have a line that you won't cross? Do you have a method that you use? Like, is your method to go in and just scare the living daylights out of the senior level so that way they comply out of fear? Like, what is it that you're trying to accomplish with this task?
We don't go step over lines, Chris. No, we're very ethical, and we've got a key core set of values in place. So we don't want to, frighten people. We certainly don't want to go down that road. But we use social engineering to expose the risks to their business. And also, when we do it personal for them, so we run that personal program, we offer that. We ask them to sign up to it. They give us permission. We don't do anything without permission. And then we demonstrate what we could find, the OSINT. And then we start to plan the attacks on that, but we make it very personal and real to say this could happen. But the good news is, and it's always got to be good news, the good news is we can help. And that usually gets the attention of the seniors. But also I believe, you've got to have a vision, right? So with us being overseeing all the security awareness for the company, and that's massive in the company and certainly one of the hottest things for any company at the moment, you've got to be able to give the business a vision. Where are you trying to go? What are you trying to achieve? What's in it for them? And also, and you know this, Chris, with human behavior, it's not quick. There's no quick fix.
Yeah.
It's very complicated. So they've got to allow the mustard seed to grow, in essence, and trust. It's too quick to hit people with a stick, which is not going to win hearts and minds.
This messaging is honestly, I wish I could sit here and tell everyone that we planned on talking about this unbelievably powerful message, but what we had planned to talk about is nothing compared to this. Is like amazing. This is great. Senior management buy-in, Mike, is probably one of the most difficult things for people to get because they're afraid, right? They're afraid of going to senior management and presenting what you just said. Hey, Mr. Senior Management, let us attack you and show you how vulnerable you are, so that way we could see if it's worth us doing this to your people. And they're afraid of that. So in essence, they don't do it. They don't do it. We hear this all the time with people, and they'll come and they'll say, we'll tell them this answer, and they'll say, senior management, they just won't bite on that. It's like, well, this is yeah.
How do you approach that? How do you talk to that senior management? The first conversation, we're about to do a new program. We need to attack you. How do you even approach that conversation?
So put your social engineering head on, right? So you need to understand the individual, what's important to them. If you can elicit the values of the individual, what's important to them, you can reframe anything into their world. And if you reframe it correctly, you're going to get buy-in. So you've got to think about everything simple like that. Understand the individual, understand what's important to them, try and get their values out to them, and then take your story and reframe it into their world. And you will get their buy-in. It'll be easier to get their buy-in. But I will say this as well. We're very blessed in BT. I've got a fantastic CISO. And my director of Protect BT Services and Operations is a fantastic guy who gets all this and really, really supportive. And we're blessed in that. We really are. So, they're passionate about driving the human firewall as a theme. And we are having a major success with driving this methodology, if you like, of not beating people up, but actually bringing people on the journey, getting people to be switched on and adding that extra layer of defense to our protection for BT. This is interesting, isn't it? Because when I look at security in its entirety, human beings are focused on it. We're driven through association. We associate things, and then that we can make quick decisions on it then. But if you looked at security and it's in an association sort of mindset, what most people see security as is probably this guard dog that comes out and bites people when they've done something wrong and then goes back in again. And everyone spends all their time trying to avoid it. Well, we've got to change the context. We've got to change the association of security. In this day, in this world we live in, this technological, digital, advanced world we live in, security's got to be seen as your friend. It's got to be the guide dog people go to, want to walk hand in hand with. These are life skills, I believe, that every person needs today. These skills you teach, Chris, these are life skills we all need to get by and survive in this digital world where people take advantage of
I think
human
I know
beings.
your answer to this question, but I want to delve a little deeper into Ryan's question because it's such a valuable point. So your answer to Ryan was you got to know what the senior level values. So let's say you find that out. You know it. You know the person you're about to go speak to, and Mr. Joe, he's always about budget and money, so you know that's what's important to him. So you're going to approach it from that angle. Where is the ethical line in using social engineering to get buy-in? Like, how do you determine? Because you want to use it. I agree with you. You want to put your SE hat on and use that to get the buy-in. But how do you know when you're going to go too far and manipulate as opposed to using it as a motivator?
So I try to avoid manipulation. I'll be perfectly honest. I'm more of an influencer. And if you can influence people, there's a big difference between influence and manipulation. Manipulation, as we know, is getting people to do things that probably they don't want to do. Influence is getting you to do things you believe you want to do. This is driving intrinsic motivation. This is getting a different chemical reaction in a human being. So, this is what I will intend to do every time. I'm not out there to manipulate people. It doesn't make people feel good. So I want to influence. And I don't stray from what I would believe is the truth. So if I believe budget is your biggest value, then if I come in with a reframe that, if this went wrong, you could end up losing £500 million, how will that affect your budget? I'm just reframing it into your language that's important to you. And we're not lying, we're just giving you the reframe, basically. So it is about influence for me, Chris. I think stakeholder management is about influence more than anything else as opposed to manipulation.
See, I like that. And I like I said, I think I knew your answer, and that was what I was expecting. I was hoping for that. Because, again, I think we want to reiterate that it's not about finding out what that person's motivated by and then building this picture of, the earth scorching and their families dying if you don't do this, because that's fear, right? The influence is getting them to think through what are the repercussions of not doing this, and what could be the loss of your motivator now if we don't do this. And that is, it sounds overly simplistic, which is why I think it's hard to say like, well, why are people not doing this more? But I think there's another ingredient in the recipe, which you said your senior level is just really, really top notch.
Our CISO and our director of Protect Services they're really on board with this, and they have been from day one. And they see the power of the people side, the human factor, and the time and energy is worth it. The value that you get back. I always say to them that one person switched on is gold dust, because it only takes one person. So they often say to me when I go and do sessions, I ran a session this morning for 3 hours, and they say, well, how do you judge you've been successful? I say, if one person out there, 200 people on that call, makes one change, then that session was worthwhile. If one person goes away and changes their Facebook profile or their LinkedIn profile or changes the way they do passwords, it was worth it. It was worth it. And that's how I judge it. One person is the value.
I think Ryan's
ready
to join the church of Mike Fortune.
So when you start, yeah, no kidding. So when you started doing these programs, you say your CISO's on board and your director of protection is on board. Were they always on board from the beginning of the program, or did you have to convince them?
I think it was a mixture of both, Ryan. I think they're very passionate people, and they're very visionary people. And when I started looking at this as a way to get people's interest, they could see the value of it right away. And actually, we sort of, I wouldn't say we stumbled on this. We initially started running training sessions, and I was like, we really need to get people's interest. It's the interest that's the most important thing. And I think the first one we actually did, I'd said to the security manager for the contact center, I was actually going in, look, leave it with me. We'll go and do a social engineering activity on this contact center, and we'll make it really funny. We'll make it really interesting and get people's attention. And I think if I remember right, I'd gone into this very sensitive contact center, and I'd got in and convinced them I was a volunteer consultant, and I'd signed all the employees up to join this volunteering charity. So they gave me all their employee numbers and everything. And and what I did, and I was training these guys at 1 o'clock, and at 8 o'clock in the morning I turned up to do this, and they didn't know who I was. And so I convinced all these managers on this floor where you're not supposed to have any mobile phones. I convinced them to build me a homeless shelter on this contact center floor. And they built this big homeless shelter, and they were taking pictures of it inside it and everything. And then when I found my way to the training room and sat in the training room a couple of hours later, and they all started coming in the training room and went, "Why are you here? You're the volunteering guy." I said, "No, I'm not." but you're going to find this session really interesting. And that sort of clicked, and it went, why do we don't do this for everything? Because this really, everyone was laughing, everyone thought it was really interesting. They were coming away buzzing. So it's like, this is what we need to do. And it's grown from there. And this is how we approach it in everything we do. Because the reason why I put this human firewall theory together, or way of thinking together, was because I wanted to drive the importance of generating interest. That was it. Because the way I sell the human firewall, because people say to me, what is the human firewall? It's security awareness. That's what it is. But the first part for a human being is knowing what you need to know. We make the best decisions we can based on the knowledge we know, our association, our memory, and so on. So you need to know what you need to know. And it needs to be current. That's the first bit. That's your awareness. That's your training. But then the second part is generating so much interest that it stays in your daily focus. That's the hard part that all companies struggle with. And if you can crack that bit, what happens is, in those key moments, that person's going to have the right mindset and the right thinking that's going to generate the right action and the right choice in those key moments. That's the secret of the firewall. But it's the interest bit's the hardest. It really is.
So one of the things you mentioned previous to me getting off track, because that was very exciting, was that you run many, many different types of phishing, vishing, and one of the things you said was SMishing attacks. So I understand you've run hundreds of thousands of SMishing or SMS phishing attacks. What have you learned from that? Because that's a data set that I don't think a lot of other companies can say that they have under their belt. Maybe a handful of SMishing attacks, but to have hundreds of thousands under your belt, what did you learn from all of that?
So, I mean, it was difficult. We started creating our own capability around 2016. And we've learned literally right through the journey, not just about the how to create the effect of the fish or the smish, but also the technology of what you're working with as well, and the complexity of our company in trying to get into people's email accounts so we could do what we do and then get the measures and the KPIs and all that kind of stuff. So that's been absolutely unbelievable as a journey. But I will take my hat off to one person in my team, a lady called Fiona Ranson, who we call her Mrs. Ish, because this lady is phenomenal. She's driven this program. She's driven the education of our training program with it as well. And we've been blessed by having it. So it's not been easy, Chris. I'll be honest with you. Fishing, 100,000+ people a year has not been easy. It's been quite difficult. We don't do as many phishing calls. We do them bespoke when needed for certain selected critical teams, because we take so much time doing the phishing. But we are actually now improved our capability. We're actually working with Microsoft at the moment on their product. And we are now taking steps ahead in our capability to really bring our program up to speed. So, we'll be utilizing other things and just clicking on a link, basically, and we will be able to look at it in a different way. Beforehand, in the old days, we just basically run campaigns and see how many people clicked. Now we don't want to do that. Obviously, we now are focused on not just if you clicked, but did you give us information in a data harvest? Did you download a piece of software? We're going to look at all them as well, and also we're going to focus on repeat offenders so we can do targeted training more. So, and what we did learn, I'll tell you one thing we learned was, and this is interesting as well, we've never named any person who's fell for a phishing email. We took a real stance of education and awareness right from day one. And the only person that knows you fell for it is you and my team. But you are asked to do our 15-minute training course. And I can tell you, we honestly, the click rate came zooming down year on year with that approach. But it's about winning hearts and minds. It's the guide dog again, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the guide dog.
That's phenomenal. Man, I don't know. I got there's all these thoughts swimming around in my head, and I gotta make sure I focus, because I'm telling you, the topic of getting buy-in from the top down, C-level management is a big deal. And when you're talking to a company as large as BT, you're a sizable, formidable company. So to have advice on that level could work, really on any size company then, because you're doing it with 160,000 plus people. So if I got 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, the answer doesn't change. It just should be easier to do it because I have, 1/8 of the people that you have at your company, which is just a phenomenal point. It's almost like we should just drop the mic and walk off screen right now. I don't know.
Stop it, Chris.
You should drop the mic. I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't. We didn't do it. You did it. You should drop the mic and walk off.
Hold on. Don't drop the mic. I am the mic.
Oh yeah.
Oh dear.
Man,
but you said it yourself, Chris, didn't you? You're right. Absolutely right. You shouldn't think about numbers and size of companies. You should just take a simplistic approach and follow those steps. And if you can secure those steps, you've got more chance of success.
Yeah.
So, Mike, when you're talking about personalizing these sessions that you do for like 200 people, are you personalizing it based like, are all these 200 people from the same department within the company and you're personalizing it to that department? Or what's your method of personalizing it to that size of
So it's a bit harder now, isn't it, Ryan? Because we got COVID now, so we can't get out and about. We'd normally deliver these sessions face to face. We would do, I've delivered up to nearly 2,000 people before now on stage. We'd do big venues if we needed to. But now we got COVID, we had to adapt, and we adapted pretty quickly and pretty well using Teams, Microsoft Teams. And we've developed a 3-hour online session. How do we make it personal and real then? So what we will do normally is, and it doesn't matter where you're from, what team you're in per se, we will ask everyone to sign up, which they do. My team will then go and do an OSINT hunt on every single person that's in that team, on that call. What we do is we slowly build it up. So we take them through the facts, the theory, the psychology, then we get to some real attacks we've just done before COVID. And I call it the religious moments. You start hearing people go, oh my God. But that's fine. And then as you've taken them through these stories, it's a real eye-opening. You then go, well, what about you? And we put slides up where we don't name people. We just say, we've looked at everyone on this call. You'll know it's you, but we don't name you. And we put about 5 facts up there. So we know your dog name is Molly. We know your mother's maiden name is Close. We know. I mean, just put these up and you can hear people going, "They got me! They got me!" And that's the reaction we want. And then we go, right. And then we finish that section with, right, now listen to us. We're going to give you the advice, the guidance, all the good stuff, all the great places to go, all the support we can offer. And they're listening.
Yeah.
And so it works lovely as a formula.
You have to put some work in. That's another message. You have to put some work into this, because it's not just like
I love that approach.
You go in and you just tell some jokes. I mean, doing OSINT on 200 people could be a time-consuming venture.
In fairness, Chris, we don't do everyone. What we would do normally is put about 3 or 4 slides up. So the chances are most people will be on it, but not everyone. So we take a section of the people. But you know what? Because there's no names on, people don't know. They just look at it and go, and because they hear other people going, "It's me." It's a knock-on effect.
Yeah.
Still, you have to commit
so it does take
to
some
it.
work,
You have
Chris.
to work
it
on
does
it,
take some work.
and then you have to follow through with it, because it seems like that equation, getting the buy-in, but then you have to put some, blood, sweat, and tears into it. But then you have to follow through with a good program that gives them something actionable to do after you walk out that door. Because if it was just like you said, a religious experience, and then you leave and everyone's like, okay, well, that's over, then it goes away quickly. But it has to be something that sticks with them for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, you've also, and this is where we've matured as well. So you've got that's the hook. We know that's the hook. But how are you going to reel them in now? Because you've got the hook. You can't leave them on the hook. So what are you going to give people? People need things. They need things to keep moving on the journey. So some of the things we've actually created on the back of this, we have a very strong security champion network. We don't make people champions. We ask for volunteers following the sessions. So we get intrinsic motivated people going, I want to be one. And we keep a champion network alive, constantly talking to each other. But they're evangelizing that in their teams. And then there's a next step they can go. If the champions are in place, we've built a self-driven internal security behaviours standards award. It's self-driven. You take this template, there's 16 questions across 7 themes, and if you can mark your team as achieved on all them, you can apply to us and you'll be given this standard certificate for your team that's signed off by the CISO and your MD.
Yeah.
But you've got to do all the work and you've got to want it. We don't force it. You've got to want it. And we've taken, I think so far we've taken about 58 teams through that. And a lot of them are really critical teams. So I've achieved that award. But again, it's we've stepped back from forcing it. There's an old saying, isn't it? Insist and I'll resist. So you want people to come to you, not for you to push to. If you're pushing to, you haven't got the balance right.
Positive peer pressure works so much better because now when that first group, right, is talking about, man, that was actually fun. Like that was not what I was expecting, and that was really cool. Now the next group's like, wait, what are you talking about? I didn't get an invite to that. And it kind of spreads like a positive peer pressure as opposed to the negative, which I love that.
Mr. Cialdini's groupthink.
Yes, right. Social proof works on us. We are that is a human thing. Mike, this is fascinating. I honestly am so happy that we didn't stick to our scripted questions because that to me is maybe one of the most telling questions that we get all the time. And to have someone with your level of experience in doing this is something that we probably don't. Well, not probably don't get it often, right? We don't get it often. I mean, 160,000 people, and you run the whole team for that. That's special. So thank you for that amazing advice.
Hey, there's only 5 of us, Chris. Believe it or not.
Wow.
We do all the programs. There's only 5 of us. But if you think about the whole model, right? The idea is to get people to do it. So you don't want teams of people doing it. The idea is for you to be there and be the guides and coaches for other people to do it. Yeah,
it's wonderful. So what would you say if you were to look at the colleagues that you've had over the years? Who are the ones that you would say you respect the most in the industry? We always like to ask this question just to...
Is this wider in BT or BT itself?
Oh, just anywhere in your career. Anywhere as you've grown, as you move through your career, whether it's at BT or not, that you said, man, this person, I wouldn't have been sitting here right now today if it wasn't for that guy or gal.
Oh, well, I think there's a couple, certainly for me, for my career. I've got to say a big thank you to Steve Benton, who's our director for Protect, because he's a visionary and he enables and he's passionate, and that is a blessing. It really is. I'm going to make you blush a little bit now, Chris. I'm sorry about this, but you're also one of them.
Oh.
So I've followed you for quite a long time. When I was starting to look into social engineering way back, 9 years ago plus, there wasn't many people that you could really latch onto. Yes, there's people that talk about it, but the more techie people in the sense of pen test, but you shone in the sense of really grasping that human condition side, and you grabbed my attention right from the start. So, and I've been, I told you this, when I do my training session, I've trained thousands of people. Slide 4 has your picture on it. And I used a quote, because I often say about, around, I quite often refer to yourself and other people who, like Sir Kevin and so on, as what I call super hackers. Right, because if you think about this, right, logically, right, it's either you're going to be a technical hacker or a people hacker, one way, because human beings condition themselves. It's learned skills. So if you're never coming out of a bedroom and all you do is code, then the chance of you're not practicing your social skills, you're going to struggle with it. You'll probably think you're great, but you're probably going to be awkward. And then there's people who are off to scale people skills. But if you can bring these two skills together, right, which you do, that's a super hacker, because that's someone who can hack people and then hack tech. And that's scary. That's really scary then. So I often refer to you as that. And I often say, but for all the skills Chris has got and all the skills he's got to hack into your network, he'll probably phone someone up every day than actually try and get through the system.
Yeah. Yes.
And it just it just emphasizes the human vulnerability in essence. So you are definitely one of them. I've got to have a call out for Steve Benton as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That was unexpected, but thank you for that. If we look at just the topic that we just talked about, right, the getting C-levels involved. Like, what are some action steps that corporations should start doing right now based on our conversation today? Someone listening to this podcast saying, I want to be where Mike is in like a year. What are some things they should start doing?
Yeah, well, I think they need to look more to the human side than just the technical side of security. I think they need to see beyond the word cyber. We're too comfortable in that word for me, cyber. We need to just understand that it's security end of. Everything merges together, whether we like it or not. As you know, Chris, that we talk about advanced persistent threat attacks, but 90+% of them involve good old social engineering. And most people only ever heard the sexy stuff at the end, which is the network got compromised, the data got stolen. No one's ever aware of 12 months before someone was profiling the employees. So I think you've got to invest in the human side, and then believe in it as well, but also try. For me, what's important is try to ensure that you can influence your company, that the human factor side of security is critically important to invest in. And having them experts there makes a huge difference in making sure we keep the human element focused all the time. And so, there's some great places to go to start learning. You don't need to be a psychologist to understand human behavior. You just need to have a hunger and a passion for it. There's some fantastic mentors out there, as we know. I mean, we talked about Cialdini, but, your good friend, Paul Ekman, fabulous person, and his work is unbelievable. So we've got some fantastic visionary psychologists out there that we can pick their work up and learn from. And don't be afraid to adapt as well. You don't have to follow everyone to everything they do. Be visionary yourself, adapt, try new things out. We just tried things out. What worked well for us. Don't be afraid to be flexible and adaptable.
I love that messaging, Mike. I also love the idea, because people ask me this all the time. You don't need a psych degree to do this job. You just need to have understanding. I don't have a psych degree.
No. Well, you don't need it. You don't need, to me, Bruce Lee was the famous one who turned around and said, well, I don't have a black belt because it just holds your pants up. What's a certificate? It's a piece of paper.
Right.
It's a piece of paper. Experience and is everything. When I go out and I talk, and quite often I go, I've done 18 years, this and 18 years at that. But that means nothing, because that's just talking about it. But actually, when you looked at, you've done over 200 physical attacks, you've done hundreds of thousands of phishing, that's experience, that's actually doing it. So go and have a go and do it. But actually go and watch people, go and learn about people. Well, first of all, learn about yourself. Yeah. That's got to be the first thing, hasn't it? Learn about yourself is definitely important. But you're right, you don't need a degree, and you don't need to go to school to learn and start to understand people better, and learn social skills as well.
I love it. Now, one thing we've been asking people literally for 12 years of doing this podcast is book recommendations. And it could be it doesn't even be about our topic, right? It could be something you just read that you're like, I love that book, and something you want to recommend.
Okay, so I am going to put that psychology head on now, because I am absolutely hooked on psychology and human behavior. And it's behavior in its entirety. So probably one of the best books for me, it might be very heavy for other people, is the book called Behave by Robert Spelowski. If I spell his name, I always get his name wrong. I'm terrible at getting names wrong. But the book Behave, which I've read numerous times, is just fascinating for me. And it allows you to understand the mechanics of the brain a little bit more, and how that all plays out in our behavior.
Yeah, I've heard. I have to read this one, because now you are the third person to recommend this book to me in a very short period of time, amazingly enough. So
it's on Audible as well.
Yeah, I'm going to have to, because again, the third time I've heard this name of this book, and I'm like, oh, this is now somebody's telling me to read this book. Okay, I got to do this. So that's what I mean. Universe is saying, read it, Chris.
Hey, you read this book, Chris.
Mike, you
gotta read that book.
Thank you enough, man. I'm so glad we had a chance to get you on today. This topic is fascinating for us, and it's really needed. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I've not seen Ryan in church ever, and you brought him there today. Yes. I mean, he was praising the Lord. He had his hands up. He was. I mean,
well, I'm taking the collection in a minute, by the way, Ryan.
That's the plate. We'll put something in it. I mean it. We love you, man.
Yeah, that's fine. Drop it
It's
in. Ching, ching, ching,
positive.
ching. I love the message. I just absolutely love the message.
And just so real. So I can't thank you enough for that.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds very effective, which is something that everyone should pay attention to.
Yeah, but it's not easy, and it's hard work, and you've got to have patience. You've got to have patience because every human being is different. Every human being is complex. But hey, Chris, I want to have a call out for you, though. I'm going to, it's a massive thank you for you because it's your work, it's your focus that is inspiring for social engineering and putting it where it needs to be, which is about the human condition side of things, and I think that's fantastic.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So you carry on doing what you're doing because you're making a massive difference.
If people wanted to reach out to you, wanted to just chat with you, know more about you, is there a way to do that?
I think from my own experience, I stay quite dark on social media.
Okay.
But I have got an email address, so people are more than welcome to reach out to me on an email address, and then we can connect from that way if they want to.
And you okay if we put that in the show notes?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I've got no problem with that whatsoever.
Okay, so we'll do that.
I'm pretty good at making sure it's not a phishing email.
Okay, good. We're happy about that. Michael, I can't thank you enough again. Wonderful, wonderful conversation. So thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm very blessed for you bringing me on today. Yeah. So it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, thank you.
Don't forget to check out the brand new social-engineer.org and social-engineer.com. Please give us support over at innocentliesfoundation.org. And you can follow Ryan at Twitter, at Twitter. Wow, Ryan now owns the at Twitter. That would be amazing. He is Twitter. Ryan is Twitter. So just go to Twitter and it's Ryan. He'll just go there and say Ryan and he'll answer. How do they follow you, Ryan?
Yep, that's how it works.
On Twitter.
It's the direct line to me is at Joe Montmania.
So it's not just at Twitter. You can go to Joe Montmania and
I can get at Twitter, but if you want to
real
talk,
quick, that's a better way. And I'm not nearly as important as Ryan, so I'm little at Human Hacker. So you can get me there. And don't try to find Mike on social media because not going to happen. Okay, well, everyone, we will see you next month. See you.